March 2nd, 1896. The mountains of northern Ethiopia. The sun rises on a battlefield that has just rewritten the history of a continent. 6,000 European soldiers lie dead. An empire, Italy, has just been broken in open battle by an African army. And rising over the smoke are three colors that, within 70 years, will fly over half the African continent. This is not the story of a piece of cloth. This is the story of a covenant, 3,000 years old. A queen who starved an army with thirst. An emperor who walked everywhere with a living lion at his side. A speech in 1963 that became one of the most famous reggae songs ever recorded. And a flag that became, for every black person on earth, a symbol of the one place Europe could never take. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you things they don't teach in school. Why Bob Marley's most famous song was written by an Ethiopian emperor. Why 11 churches in Lalibela were carved from solid rock, top down, in 24 years, a feat modern archaeologists say is impossible, even today, with diamond blades. And why, according to the people who built them, angels came at night to finish what the workers could not. Why the Ark of the Covenant, the actual Ark from the Bible, is, according to a 1,000-year-old Ethiopian text, sitting in a chapel in a city called Aksum right now. And how a single mistranslated word in a treaty cost 6,000 Italian soldiers their lives. The year is roughly 950 BC. The Queen of Sheba, known in Ethiopia by her real name Makda, leaves her palace in the Horn of Africa and travels 1,800 miles north. She has heard of a king in Jerusalem whose wisdom is said to be greater than any in the world. His name was Solomon. What happens between them is told in a 14th century Ethiopian holy text called the Kebra Negest, the glory of kings. She studies under him. She returns home. And she returns home pregnant. Their son is named Menelik I. When Menelik is grown, he travels to Jerusalem to meet his father. And when he leaves, according to the Kebra Negest, he does not leave empty-handed. With the help of priests loyal to him, he takes with him the most sacred object in human history, the Ark of the Covenant. To this day, in the city of Aksum, in northern Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church says the Ark rests in a chapel called Our Lady Mary of Zion. Only one man is permitted to see it, a monk appointed for life, who never leaves the chapel grounds. When he dies, he names his successor on his deathbed. No archaeologist, no journalist, no foreign king has ever been allowed in. Not Indiana Jones, not the BBC, not the Vatican. And whether or not you believe the Ark is in there, the entire Ethiopian state was built on the claim that it is. Because of that claim, Ethiopia's emperors called themselves the Solomonic dynasty, direct descendants of Solomon and Sheba. For 3,000 years, they ruled a kingdom that saw itself as a second Israel, a Zion. And in their churches, when the clergy needed to choose colors to represent the kingdom, they did not pick them from politics. They picked them from the sky after Noah's flood. They were the colors of the rainbow that God showed Noah, the sign of his covenant. Green for the Holy Spirit and the fertility of the earth. Yellow for the light of God the Father. Red for the sacrificial blood of Christ. These were not three stripes on one flag. They were three separate triangular banners flown side by side. The Trinity made visible to anyone who looked up. For nearly 1,000 years, that is what waved over Ethiopia. But the rainbow alone could not have stopped Europe. For that, Ethiopia needed lions, and it needed an emperor who was, quite literally, never seen without one. This is not a special effect. This is real footage of the last emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie I, walking through his palace in Addis Ababa with a living, breathing, black-maned Abyssinian lion at his side. The lion's name was Tojo. Tojo was not the only one. At the Jubilee Palace, the emperor kept an entire private pride. According to Hans Lockhart, a German librarian who lived at the imperial court, Haile Selassie's collection of lions was second in size only to the menagerie at Longleat in England. He fed several of them by hand, every morning. Lockhart wrote that the emperor, and I'm quoting now, found it easier to relax with lions than with human beings. When American politician Sergeant Shriver visited Addis Ababa, the emperor casually invited him to pet Tojo. Shriver, a man who had stared down Cold War crises, froze. Tojo, usually gentle, once took a single warning swipe at another visiting diplomat. The diplomat survived. The story did not stay quiet. But why? Why a lion? Why not a horse, an eagle, a sword? The symbols European kings chose. To answer that, you have to go further back. Before Emperor Haile Selassie I, before Menelik II, into the oral tradition of the Ethiopian highlands. For centuries, the warriors of the Ethiopian highlands lived in close contact with the great cats of the savannah. Ethiopian oral tradition holds that the king's god kept trained lions and cheetahs, raised from cubs, walked through camp, brought into battle as living symbols of the throne's power. Whether they ever physically charged an enemy line, scholars still debate. What is certain is that the lion became inseparable from kingship. To capture and tame a lion was to prove you were fit to rule. When you understood the lion, you understood the king. And when you saw the king's lion, you understood the empire. They called him the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. And by the late 1800s, his image was about to be sewn onto the most important piece of cloth in African history. But before that flag could be born, before the rainbow of the church became the banner of a modern state, a single word, mistranslated in a treaty, was about to set the whole continent on fire. May 2nd, 1889. In a town called Wuchale, in northern Ethiopia, two empires sign what is supposed to be a treaty of friendship. The Italians want trade and a quiet border. Emperor Menelik II of Ethiopia wants modern rifles and recognition. The treaty is signed in two languages, Italian and Amharic, 20 articles. Both sides smile. Both sides go home. Then someone in Addis Ababa reads Article 17 out loud. The Amharic version says, "The Emperor of Ethiopia may, if he chooses, use Italy as a go-between when talking to other European powers. He may, if he wants, a polite courtesy." The Italian version says, "The Emperor of Ethiopia consents to use consente o l'uso, the Italian government for all his foreign relations." Consents to. No choice. No, if he wants. One word. May versus consents to. In Rome, Italy walks into the offices of the great European powers and announces that Ethiopia is now an Italian protectorate. In Addis Ababa, Emperor Menelik reads the Italian version and realizes he has been tricked. In 1893, Menelik does something no African ruler had ever done before. He writes to the great European capitals, London, Paris, Berlin, St. Petersburg, and informs them that the treaty is void. Italy does not get to speak for Ethiopia. Italy never did. Italy responds the only way 19th century European empires knew how to respond. They send an army. And in the palace at Addis Ababa, the emperor turns to the most dangerous person in the room. Not a general, not a priest, his wife. Her name was Taitu Bitul. She was born around 1851 into an aristocratic Ethiopian family that traced its line back to King Solomon himself. She had been married 4 times before Menelik. She read and wrote Amharic, rare for a woman of her time. She spoke Ge'ez, the sacred language of the church, fluently. She was a chess player. She founded the city of Addis Ababa in 1886, the city whose name she chose, which means new flower. And in 1895, when the Italian army crossed the border with modern rifles and modern artillery, Empress Taitu took the floor at the War Council and made a single demand. No surrender, no negotiation. War. The Italians had built a fortress on top of a hill called Enda Jesus, just outside the city of Mekelle. It was heavily armed, well supplied, almost impossible to take by assault. The generals wanted to bypass it. Taitu studied the map, and she noticed something the generals had missed. The fortress had no well. Every drop of water the Italians drank had to be carried up from a single spring at the bottom of the hill. Taitu raised her own force, 5,000 foot soldiers and 600 cavalry, and gave them one mission: take the spring, hold the spring. Don't let a single bucket get past you. For 10 days, the Italian garrison watched the spring through their telescopes. They could see the water. They could not reach it. They drank the dew off their tents. They drank the contents of their canteens. They drank, finally, the contents of their boots. On the 11th day, the Italian commander surrendered the fortress of Mekelle to an Ethiopian empress who had not fired a single shot at his walls. Mekelle was the warm-up. 3 weeks later, the real war began. The Italians, humiliated, regrouped at a place called Adwa. March 1st, 1896. The Italian general, Oreste Baratieri, is under pressure from Rome to win, quickly, decisively, before the European newspapers can mock him further. He has roughly 17,000 men. He believes he is facing maybe 40,000 Ethiopians. He is wrong. Menelik and II have called the entire empire to arms. Estimates of the Ethiopian army that morning range from 70,000 to over 100,000 fighters. Many of them are armed with modern rifles imported from France and Russia, paid for, in part, with the diplomatic skill of the Empress. Empress Taitu does not stay in the palace. She leads her own battalion of women, nurses, porters, water carriers, and yes, fighters, into the mountains. Baratieri's plan is to attack at dawn. He splits his army into 3 columns. In the dark, on unfamiliar mountain trails, those columns get lost. 2 of them drift miles apart. And as the sun comes up, the Ethiopian generals see what every commander dreams of seeing: a divided enemy. They attack. By sundown on March 1st, 1896, the Italian army has ceased to exist as a fighting force. Roughly 6,000 Italian and Allied soldiers are dead. Almost 4,000 are prisoners. It is the worst defeat any European army will suffer at African hands in the entire colonial era. In London, Paris, Berlin, the European newspapers refuse to print the news for 2 days. They cannot believe it. When they finally do, Italian crowds riot in the streets of Rome. The Italian Prime Minister resigns within the week, and in every black community in the world, from Lagos to Kingston to Harlem, 3 colors are suddenly etched into the imagination of every person who has ever lived under a European flag. The pennants of the church were no longer just cloth. They were a promise to every black person who had ever dreamed of being free. One year after Adwa, Menelik II sits in his new capital and realizes something. To be respected as an equal among the empires of the world, Ethiopia needs the trappings of a modern state: a constitution, a railway, a postal service, a bank, and a flag. On October 6, 1897, Emperor Menelik II issues a decree. The 3 triangular pennants of the church are to be cut down and sewn together into a single rectangular tricolor. From this day forward, this is the flag of Ethiopia. But, and this is the part most people forget, the original order was not the one you know today. Menelik put red on top, yellow in the middle, green at the bottom. Red on top because red was the color of the blood that had just been spilled at Adwa to keep Ethiopian soil free. Red, in Menelik's logic, deserved the highest place, and at the very center of the yellow stripe, he placed the first letter of his own name in the ancient Ge'ez alphabet, Ma. A signature, a stamp of authority. This flag is mine, and this empire is sovereign. Empress Taitu, who had helped win the war that made the flag necessary, reportedly weighed in on the debate. So did Ras Makonnen, a brilliant general, the father of a small boy named Teferi Makonnen, who one day, under a different name, would change this flag forever. That boy's name, when he became emperor, was Haile Selassie. And the first thing he did, the very first thing, was turn the flag upside down. November 2nd, 1930. Teferi Makonnen is crowned at the Cathedral of St. George in Addis Ababa and takes the throne name Haile Selassie. Power of the Trinity. Kings, presidents, and journalists from around the world fly in to watch. Time magazine puts him on the cover. He inherits Menelik's flag. He flips it. Green on top, yellow in the middle, red at the bottom. This is the flag you know today. And in the center of the yellow stripe, he removes Menelik's letter and places something far older. The conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, holding a staff topped with a cross, draped with a ribbon of the three national colors. This was not decoration. This was a message to the world. We are the lion. We are 3,000 years old. We are still here. 5 years later, an Italian dictator named Benito Mussolini decides Ethiopia is unfinished business. In October 1935, Italy invades again, this time with tanks, bombers, and, in violation of every international convention, mustard gas, sprayed from airplanes onto Ethiopian villages and onto Ethiopian armies that fought back with rifles and swords. Addis Ababa falls in May 1936. Haile Selassie is forced into exile. For 5 years, the Emperor of Ethiopia lives in a house called Fairfield in the English city of Bath. The British government, embarrassed to host him too publicly, will not let him stay in London. He runs out of money. He sells the family silver. But before he disappears into exile, he takes one train ride that will echo for 100 years. On June 30th, 1936, Emperor Haile Selassie I walks into the chamber of the League of Nations in Geneva. He is the first sitting head of state ever to speak there in person. The Italian press in the gallery hiss and boo. He waits calmly until they are forcibly removed. Then he speaks in Amharic. But if Ethiopia is allowed to fall, if poison gas dropped on African villages is excused, then every small nation in the world will be next. He looks at the European powers and says, "It is us today. It will be you tomorrow." The League votes against sanctions. They abandon him. 3 years later, Hitler invades Poland. He was right. During the occupation, owning the tricolor flag inside Ethiopia is punishable by death. But people hide them, sew them into the linings of jackets, bury them in the foundations of churches. And in 1941, when British and Ethiopian forces drive the Italians out, Haile Selassie returns. He hoists the flag at a town called Haja, marking the end of the occupation, and rides back into Addis Ababa 5 years to the day after he had been forced to leave. And then, in 1963, he gives a speech that an unknown Jamaican musician at the time will turn, 13 years later, into one of the most famous songs in the world. October 4th, 1963, the 18th session of the United Nations General Assembly, New York City. Emperor Haile Selassie I takes the podium. He speaks for nearly an hour. He talks about colonialism, racism, and the future of Africa. And near the end of the speech, he says one paragraph that will outlive him, outlive his throne, and outlive the United Nations itself. Until the philosophy, which holds one race superior and another inferior, is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned. Until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes. Until that day, the dream of lasting peace and world citizenship and the rule of international morality will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued but never attained. And until that day, the African continent will not know peace. We Africans will fight if necessary, and we know that we shall win, as we are confident in the victory of good over evil.
Basic freedoms and rights required.
13 years later, a Jamaican musician who had grown up believing the Emperor of Ethiopia was a holy figure walks into a recording studio in Kingston. He picks up the transcript of the speech. He sets it to music. He changes almost nothing. The song is called War. It is recorded by Bob Marley and the Wailers in 1976. And almost every word you hear in the lyrics. Until the philosophy, which hold one race superior and another inferior, is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned. Every word is Haile Selassie.
Until that day, the African continent will not know peace. We Africans will fight, we find it necessary. We know we shall win. We are confident in the victory of good over evil.
By 1963, when Haile Selassie speaks at the UN, the colors of the Ethiopian flag are already flying over the new nations of Africa. Ghana was the first to adopt them in 1957, the year Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African colony to win independence. Senegal followed, Mali, Cameroon, Benin, Guinea, Togo. The list keeps growing. Today, more than 20 national flags around the world use some combination of green, yellow, and red. And almost every one of them traces, directly or indirectly, back to the flag Menelik II decreed in 1897. In the afterglow of a battle Europe could not believe it had lost. They are called the Pan-African colors, but they were Ethiopian first. And in the Rastafari movement in Jamaica, they are not just a flag. They are a religion. The emperor was not just a king. He was to them the second coming. He never accepted the title, but the tricolor became the holiest cloth in Caribbean spiritual life. Back in Ethiopia, though, the flag was about to lose its lion. September 12th, 1974. After 82 years on this earth, Emperor Haile Selassie I, the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, is deposed by a junta of young military officers calling themselves the Derg. They drive him out of his palace in the back seat of a Volkswagen Beetle. He dies under house arrest the following year. The Derg are Marxists. They hate the imperial past. They want to erase the Solomonic dynasty entirely. But they also know that if they touch the green, yellow, and red, the country will revolt. So they perform what historians call a symbolic surgery. First, they strip the lion of his crown. Then, they replace the cross on his staff with a spear, the symbol of the workers' struggle. By 1987, when the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia is declared, the lion is gone entirely. In his place, a blue disc with a star, a cogwheel for industry, and a plow for the farmers. But the tricolor itself, green, yellow, red, they did not dare touch. The colors of the rainbow that Noah saw, the colors of Adwa, the colors of Haile Selassie, the colors of every African flag that had taken inspiration from this one. The Derg knew that if they pulled at that thread, the whole country would unravel. In 1991, the Derg fell. The Soviet Union, which had backed them, collapsed in the same year. A new government took power, and in 1996, the flag changed one more time. The new government, the EPRDF, led by Meles Zenawi, wanted to redefine Ethiopia, not as an empire of a single throne, but as a federation of more than 80 different ethnic groups, each with equal voice. So in 1996, they added a new emblem to the center of the flag, a blue circle, and inside it, a 5-pointed yellow star with rays radiating outward. And this sparked the biggest debate in the flag's modern history. To traditionalists, especially in the diaspora, the blue disc was a political slogan stamped onto a sacred cloth. To the new government, it was the only honest way to admit that Ethiopia is not just one people, it is many. The argument is still going on. Walk down a street in Addis Ababa today, or into an Ethiopian restaurant in Washington, D.C., or in London, or in Toronto, and you will see both flags flown side by side, the official one with the star, and the plain one of the ancestors. Same 3 colors, same 3,000 years. Because in the end, the cloth was never the point. From the penance of medieval monks to the battlefield where Europe lost its claim to a continent. From the silk Menelik stitched in 1897 to the stage where Haile Selassie warned the world about Hitler before the world was ready to listen. From Bob Marley's microphone to a child's bedroom wall in Lagos. From the Ark of the Covenant to the streets of every African capital that became free. These 3 colors have followed. Green for the earth that fed an empire no foreigner could conquer. Yellow for the light of a faith that named itself Zion. Red for the blood of every patriot who refused, century after century, to bow. The flag of Ethiopia is not a piece of cloth. It is the longest unbroken conversation in African history. A conversation between a queen and her king 3,000 years ago. Between a priest and a rainbow. Between an empress and a thirsty fortress. Between an emperor and a lion that walked beside him. Between a speech in Geneva and a song in Kingston. Between an old generation that remembers Adwa and a new generation that is still writing what comes next. And it is still being written today. Now I have a question for you. Which flag do you fly? The one with the star or the one without? Tell me in the comments and tell me why. Next time, we go to February 19th, 1937. 3 days that Italy spent decades trying to bury. Tens of thousands dead. Not one trial. And in the perpetrator's hometown, they built him a monument. That story is next. Subscribe if you want the Africa they left out of the textbooks.